Up next is Louise Laughlin, who comes from a designer background and is going to talk to us about the unhappy path. So null is avoidable. So just welcome Louise. So thank you, Louise.
I'm alive. Can you hear me? Great. Okay, what's the crack, everybody? Thanks so much to Women Tech Mirrors for having me today. So yeah, like mentioned, I'm going to talk about kind of the unhappy path in a user's experience, which is primarily focused on empty states. So those moments in a user's experience where there's maybe nothing to display and how we can avoid them in future. Okay. No. Knew it was going to happen. All right, so a bit about myself, just to begin with. I'm Louise. I'm a UX designer at Rapid7. I'm also co-organiser of Belfast JS. So myself and my partner, we run Belfast JS. It's a meetup that happens maybe a few times a year. I know with the title, it maybe sounds like we're very focused on front-end stuff. We're not. It's very inclusive. We take people from all walks of life. So we're actually hoping to host one at the end of the month, start of next month. So if anybody's interested in kind of cutting their teeth with regards to public speaking, reach out to me and I'll be able to, we'll get something sorted. I'm also a drawer of things. So I was an artist for many, many years, still am, before my tech career. I'm also a DIY dabbler. I put that in there because, yeah, I like to sort of teach myself new tips and tricks and do things about the house. I'm also a dog mum, so that is her and all of her glory. Wee Peps, wee babe. So yeah, she's star of my eyes. Okay, so let's get into it. So what is an empty state? So empty states are moments in a user's experience where there's nothing to display, as mentioned. So, you know, I use the term null, which is obviously a text statement, but I think from a user's perspective, it does match as well. So it's like with no value or effect, or an empty value, or a zero. So when are kind of use cases where users can encounter empty states? So I think the main ones is obviously during onboarding or initial usage. You know, when a user's configuring things, if they haven't set anything up yet, or they haven't favorited or created anything, if that's the sort of nature of the product that they're working with. I would also say as well, it's typical where there's just no content to show. You know, if you've entered a search and no results are returned, etc. That also denotes an empty state. But it's also, and this one kind of cool for me, where it's like maybe if a user's completed a task, you know, it's the resulting screen of that. So it's almost, that's more of a positive thing. You've done the task correctly. You have nothing left to do. So there's also edge cases here that I've included to be more about, I've bundled them with empty states where they're not necessarily empty as such. They're just kind of part, I think they can be wrapped up together. So it's, for example, error states and loading states. So for error states, you could have like timeout errors, Wi-Fi loss, which would be system errors, or you could have those that would be more of a human error. So fat finger typing, command isn't supported, the user's done a task incorrectly. Now with loading states, they're kind of cool because they're like kind of the in-between moments of these in-between moments, which are empty states. And I thought that it would be important to keep them kind of bundled up together. So first things first, what makes a bad empty state, right? So some empty states are to be expected. You know, during onboarding or initial configuration, you will be presented with, hey, I've just kind of logged in. I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, you know, there's not really going to be anything to display because you haven't actually configured anything. And saying that, there are kind of empty states that can't be avoided. So that's during, like, you know, an initial, if there's an intended task or an intended action that a user has to do, empty states can cause frustration there. So that would be the example of like searching, filtering, display of specific content, like I'm looking for this content, why is there nothing there? You can imagine that that would cause a lot of frustration if the user's workflow was interrupted by an empty state of some description. So I like this quote. This was from kind of some of my research and building this presentation, but it's like, totally empty states can cause confusion about how or whether the system is working. So basically, if you think about it, users are more likely to go internal when something goes wrong. They're like, what did I do? Did I press the wrong button? Did I do something? Like, what has happened here? So that's why sort of how we implement empty states is so important in that user kind of experience of our product. And, you know, bad sort of practice would be like providing them nothing. So there's no content, they're just blank screens. Misleading information, so maybe the wrong way to kind of go about remedying a situation, or as well lack of context. So you might say like, you know, error, but no context of why or what that error is. So some kind of examples of these kind of missed opportunities with empty states are kind of threefold here, but there's plenty more we've probably all experienced in our use of products. So the first one, it does provide like, you know, good feedback where it's like you've no more actions to take in your sort of workflow of this product. But it doesn't really give the user anywhere to go. You know, it's kind of like, yep, you've done your task, good for you, but maybe no suggestions of where they can go next. I would say as well, the second one, I think it's old school Spotify. I was surprised to know that it was Spotify, but again, an error occurred. It's providing no context or no kind of way out for the user to remedy this sort of situation. Then the last one, now, you can see this quite a lot in quote-unquote trendy designs, where it's like illustration-based. Now, I'm a fan of illustrations. I think they're great. I think you can utilize a lot of like design principles with illustrations in empty states. You know, I think there's one, now I might be butchering this pronunciation, but I think it's biophilia, I think, where it's like this sort of psychology of when humans see something nature-based, they get a little bit more relaxed and less stressed. So that's why you'll see in a lot of empty states, like a lot of greenery, a lot of plants, and a lot of like, you know, those kind of illustrations, because it's just feeding into that sort of psychology bit. So I do think that they're useful, but I think just in this instance, you need to be aware that it's not fashion over function. So you need to provide a bit like more context, CTAs, ways out for the user. So next up, the good stuff. This is sort of what I think is example of, what I think makes a good empty state. So these principles are not inclusive. You know, I just kind of bundled them up into these 5 key areas, which I think would be the most, it's the most applicable anyway, on how to build a good empty state. So number 1 is discovery. So utilize empty states to allow users to learn more about the application they're in, the usability of the product. You know, there's so much opportunity here. And number 2 is provide actions. So if there is some sort of, like if something has kind of gone wrong, give them a way out. Provide them an action to do. You know, use human language. I think providing empathy within empty states is paramount. Provide direct pathways and instructions on how to populate data or for getting started with key tasks. So again, aiding that education. Status as well. So if something has gone wrong on our end, for example, 404, like all the error codes, communicate system status to the user. You know, they again will go internal. So we owe it to them to provide, something's gone wrong on our end. Sorry about that. Preparation as well. So I've seen it a lot with, like, for example, inboxes and stuff where it's like set an expectation of what users should see when data is populated in their on the page or in the application. So I've seen it with inboxes where it's like messages will appear here if X, etc. So provide that clear messaging. Delight, right, this is my favourite one. And now delight is a bit of a polarizing one in the design terms, like design stuff, but I like it. But it's like, basically it means add fun, personality, and joy into the experience by utilising these empty states. You know, you can easily turn an unpleasant experience into a more positive one by adding this sort of personality and fun. So greatest of all time, the offline mode for Google. Who hasn't kind of seen this before? We're all tech people. And it's one of my favourite things of all time. So, other examples of good empty states. So in the first sort of one there where it says good morning Val, it's about adding that empathy and about adding that sort of personalisation where they, like, you meet them where they are. You meet the user where they are, you have personalisation, it's like talking to a friend, nearly. Number 2, obviously, is Amazon, because dogs, I'm a dog person, we know this now. But again, it's kind of that interesting thing of like maybe make your empty states memorable. You know, we talked about the dinosaur there and Amazon dogs, you know, utilise empty states to your advantage, even for your brand, and know, oh, here, have you seen Amazon's empty states? They have dogs, like, how cool. Similarly, actually, I think it's similar to how Cadbury's did the whole, you know, drums and eyebrows kind of marketing campaign a few years ago. It's like completely not chocolate, but we still remember it to this day. So maybe utilise some of that. Ironically, from Lucy's talk there, when I first did this presentation, I signed up for GitHub. So I was actually very impressed by their onboarding experience. And I thought there was really clear feedback and education of how to use the tool. And then obviously, like, you know, the iconic unicorn. When I was first looking at this, I kind of thought, is this a good empty state? Is it not? But because it just says contact support, but it actually gives you a link to contact support from that empty state. So therefore, it is actionable. Okie dokie. So, of course, I'm a designer, so wouldn't be design if we didn't have a persona. So I have kind of fabricated this fake app called Decorator. And Emmy is our user in question today. So they've just moved into a new house and have signed up to a platform which allows them to curate images of homes and spaces that inspire them. They can also create shopping lists to achieve the aesthetic they desire. They're excited for this new chapter and can't wait to decorate their new home. So in this kind of new application, how can we put what we've learned about best and worst practices of empty states into practice? So to start, Emmy's presented with the welcome screen. So on the left, we have, you know, not the ideal situation. On the right, we have some recommendations of how to make this experience better. So on the left, accurate, easy, no content, right? Not the best user experience for when you're getting started for a product. Recommendations would be, you know, include personalization, have an onboarding experience for them. So it's like, use their name, personal language, empathy, let them know we got you, like, add context through language so that they know what to set up, and even as a sort of extension of that, provide a walkthrough experience, highlight KCTA so that they know how to navigate this new product. So the second kind of instance where there might denote an empty state is during search. So with this application, you can search across a community-based environment to gain inspiration. So Emmy has a paved area in their new garden and wants to be able to sit and soak up the rays in the brighter months. Bring it on. They search for the inspiration tab for garden decor, but because of the amount of results, the system processing time is lengthy for this search. So obviously, if we provided nothing, they would feel very unsure. How quick do you think that Emmy would refresh that page, exit the application, force quit, you know, worry, basically. So recommendation, obviously, provide a loop and state. Let them know, this is going to take a wee minute, there's a lot of results here, but we got you. I think then the next one, with this application, you can create shopping lists to get your desired aesthetic. So Emmy wants to make sure the plant pots are on their shopping list for their new garden. So Again, the first one, we've seen it a lot. No results found. It's accurate, but it doesn't give them a way out. It just kind of says, oh, sorry, you're bad. We haven't found anything. Whereas the next one, which is a better sort of recommendation, is like add a CTA to allow Emmy to like add the item that she was looking for to that shopping list. It provides empathy, meets them where they are, and just provides a more positive outcome from what would be a negative situation. So, lastly, error states. So, it's error-based messaging. So, Emmy's a fan of retro furniture with a particular interest in the early 2000s futuristic aesthetic. They search for a blow-up garden chair, but as they're human, you could typo in the process. Now, don't know about you, but I used to circle blow-up chairs way back when in the back of an Argos catalogue, so I feel her on this, but do question her, use of these chairs, because in the summer, sitting in a back garden in the sunshine might get a wee bit sweaty. But anyway, that's just me. So, yeah, as I mentioned, they make a typo. So the first experience here, we can see that there's no results found. Again, this kind of calls out her, their mistake. Kind of says makes them feel frustrated. They're like, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, I have to go back in and do it. So the second kind of recommendation would be use tech to our advantage here. Be smart about it. Predict kind of human error. Predict spelling mistakes. Predict the things that could potentially go wrong in this instance. We've heard a lot of talks today about artificial intelligence and stuff, but I think a lot of us still work in products where we have to be the ones to make these calls, and we have to be the ones that kind of, us as humans, design for humans, so we need to be the ones that prepare for these situations. So suggestion would be pull up, predict this error, pull up results. They're still using the application, don't let them click away from the application. The response will be intelligent, it'll be prepared, and again, it sets me up for success. Okay, so a few other things to consider when thinking about empty states. So, number one, accessibility. This question came up before when I talked about this, but it was if your product is accessible, your empty states should be too. So, provide a logical order of interactive elements, alternative text for imagery, especially if diagrammatic in nature, and good colour contrast. It should behave like any other part of your product. Number two is design system standards. So if you work for a client or company that has a design system, ensure that you ensure to check if there's any guidelines or any kind of recommendations or any sort of standards in practice first before you start implementing empty states on your own, just for consistency and for that overall user experience. So, last but not least, there's kind of threefold things that maybe we should consider when building empty states in future. So, number one, context. Does the user understand why there's no content? Do they understand what's went wrong, how it's went wrong, and then also communication. So, have we communicated effectively what they need to do to get out of this situation? Number three is collaboration. So, I think it's very much people think that the user experience is very much design. It's not. That's why we have balanced teams. That's why we need to work together in order to make sure that we account for all of these moments that can cause an unhappy path in a user's experience. So, engineers, for example, paramount in the design process. Usually, you're all the ones that tell us when we need empty states and how they might come about, and help frame that messaging that we provide to our users. So it takes a village. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of call that out, that it's not just kind of a one-person thing, it's a team effort. So in summary, empty states are sometimes overlooked. A lot of the time they're overlooked. We plan for the happy path, usually. We plan for the optimum experiences of a user's journey. But realistically, users will use our products the way they use them, and these are kind of like, you know, we have to plan for that. They are a key part in the user's overall experience, right? It's like if you plan for a user to do a key task and forget about the empty states, that's just going to completely add friction and reduce trust in the product. So if implemented correctly, they can aid user education, brand awareness, add delight, build trust, and that's not nothing. So therefore, Null is avoidable. And that's me.
Okay, we've got time for questions. If anyone has any questions for Louise. Oh, there's one. Go for it. Just wait until we get the mic up to you.
Thank you very much for a fantastic presentation. Just a quick one. Apologies if you already explained it and I missed it. What's the CTA?
Call to action.
Okay, thank you very much.
Apologies. I should have been more. No, call to action. I know, sorry.
Any other questions for Louise? Well, awesome. Brilliant presentation. Thank you very much, Louise.